You're rocking with Gamescom Studio here on IGN. I'm a simple man. A video game lets me travel to a distant planet and fight big, terrifying creatures. I get excited, and luckily Alien Deathstorm is going to let me do exactly that. Here to tell me all about it is Ben Fisher, head of design on Alien Deathstorm. Yo, what's up, dude?
How's it going?
Thanks for coming by.
Yeah, no problem.
So give folks a sort of overview, big picture about what this game is.
Okay, Alien Deathstorm is an action horror sci-fi shooter set on an off-world colony gone wrong. The player plays as an engineer who's been sent in to try and resolve the situation. When they get there, they find out that it's much worse than they thought.
So in terms of survival horror, it feels like you're a bit more on the front foot in this game. You're not necessarily scampering around in the darkness, running out of flashlight batteries. Like, you're out there killing. You're fighting back.
Yeah, so the most interesting thing we found in the game is it's got a real a sort of balance between quiet, tense anticipation moments where you're exploring, trying to understand what's gone wrong, balanced out by these huge climactic battles. And the enemy population is procedurally generated around the player and their actions, so no two playthroughs will be the same.
Oh, that's awesome. I had no idea. What made you guys decide to do that instead of having like specifically scripted moments? Was that pretty much just for the surprise element?
Well, at Rebellion, we really favor games that have like sandbox freedom for the player. So you've got a clear goal, and then you've got as much freedom as possible to achieve it. Typically, horror games are much more choreographed so that you can like build in anticipation and build in jump scares, but that means that you can play them once before that's spent, essentially. Yeah. So we like to encourage replay. We like to encourage players to have a different experience every time they play. So the only way to do that was procedurally. So what the game does is monitors the player's exploration, monitors how they're interacting with the world, and as the player's exploring and poking around in sort of sandbox environments, they attract attention to themselves.
Ooh,
and every now and again, a climactic battle kicks.
Yeah. You guys worked on the AVP games, and this is basically, taking a lot of ideas from those things, but going, we're going to go with a brand new story here, a brand new approach. What was the decision there to sort of kind of strike away from a licensed IP and just be like, let's go nuts with our own thing?
Well, now we make games that are exclusively our own IP.
Yeah.
Rebellion likes to make games that we can do what we like, essentially. So if we were working on a game that was someone else's IP, you've got to ask permission. You've got to make sure you fit the brand guidelines of what already exists. And we like to work in a very kind of iterative, collaborative way. And that means the most interesting stuff in the game has emerged over time. It's not things that we wrote in a document and then you just make the game that's on the document, right? So the Deathstorm itself is an element in the game that has emerged over time as being like a key part of the identity.
I love the title of the game, by the way. It's like when you see Texas Chainsaw Massacre or something like, yep, there's an Alien Deathstorm, I'm in. Yeah. Speaking of which, like the aliens themselves, the creature design of this game looks really cool. And I think what I love about what I've seen so far is I haven't gotten a really good glimpse of them because it's dark, there's storms happening, there's weather conditions and all this stuff. Tell me a little bit about coming up with the creature design, the scale of them and all that, because we're seeing stuff that's, scurrying across walls and ceilings, but then there's some big mother F words in there too.
Yeah, so to talk about the sort of wall-crawling, scuttling aliens, by making our own IP, we can choose how big they are and how they behave and make them easy to shoot as part of the game and those sorts of things. We wanted you to feel like you were being hunted by real predatory animals.
Oh, man.
So it's not like just all-out run-and-gun shooter, but it's a fight for survival. They're powerful, you're powerful, and it's tense and difficult to survive the situation. So a lot of the time, it's as smart to run away from the fight as it is to actually get stuck straight in.
Are there any sort of like classic movie monsters or creatures from like TV shows or even books that kind of inspired some of the alien designs in this game?
Not as directly as that. I mean, most of the game dev team are all sort of familiar with 90s classic, grounded sci-fi. So all of that sort of percolated in, and then we just followed what was the best fit for the game that we had in front of us.
I love that. The setting itself is really interesting because you've effectively created this off-world colony, correct?
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about how the player gets there, what this place is, because it's a really fascinating setting, especially like some of the indoor areas where there's like plant life growing. There's a lot of story happening here.
Yeah. So we wanted it to feel like a kind of gritty, grounded, sort of cassette futurism environment. So it's not hyper travel or anything like that. It's hard work to get there and dangerous when you're there. That feeds into that desire we've got to make sort of sandbox environments, because if the player understands the rules of a space, it's a bit easier for them to explore. So we wanted it to have that kind of real-world grounding, so it's easier to digest and understand the space they're exploring.
So expand on this sort of sandbox mentality here, because like we have, there are smaller corridors and stuff, and then there's stuff that opens up and kind of big. How does it get sandboxy?
So it's a mission-driven game,
right?
And each mission is a sort of self-contained sandbox, like a key landmark, a key location, and then the surrounding area, much like Sniper Elite.
Yeah. I was going to ask you about that, because the way the weapons are handled in that game are some of my favorite weapon handling in any game, basically. And we're going to have a lot of fun toys to play with here, obviously. So talk to me a bit about what we're holding, what we're shooting, like how many of these things are basically grounded in our reality, our timeline? How much of them have a big sci-fi emphasis on them?
Sure. So the weapons that you see in the demo, we've revealed 3 of the weapons and a couple of the pieces of equipment available in the game. We wanted the weapons all to have that grounded, gritty, sort of inspired by the real world, just ahead in the future a little bit, that sort of atmosphere. Because we felt we found that made you feel more exposed, more immersed, and therefore like the threat of the aliens is much more powerful. So the weapons themselves are inspired by real world weapons. They are upgradable by the player at sort of 3D printing stations, essentially. So you can swap components to tune the gun in a direction that you want to play. So it's all about tailoring your play style, what kind of strategies you want to deploy to try and survive combat situations with aliens.
So you won't be like funneled into using specific weapons for specific moments for the most part, right?
That's
like
correct.
You have a lot of flexibility there.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know what moments are going to be there, right?
Right,
so
that's true.
Every time you play, if you play the same mission twice, you'll get drastically different experiences with aliens. If you play the game co-op with a friend, you're going to get different population again.
I really love that, because it's, I tend to play very kind of up close and personal. I love the sci-fi shotgun approach that we've got going on here.
Yeah.
But that's not going to help you in a lot of scenarios, right?
Sure. You've got to... all of the maps are built in a sort of interconnected, slightly sandboxy way. So there's never a really, really defensible position. So you have to tailor your strategy to the situation you find yourself in. So make sure you're adaptable, make sure that you're playing in your preferred play style, but also be smart about it, be observant.
When did you know, when did the team know that this felt like it was kind of cooking on all cylinders? Like, you were like, all right, we got the gunplay down, we got the environments down, like, we got this vibe going on right now. Like, when did everything start to really click for you guys?
There were 2 sort of key elements that made it really feel like it was clicking. One was when the dynamic population started to really pay off, really started to work. So you don't know what encounter is going to happen, but the cadence of it feels right. And then the other was the way that we handle objectives in the game. So it's a non-traditional way of doing objectives, inspired by the work we did on Atomfall, where it's framed more like you're a detective and you're using a journal to track leads, essentially.
Which, nice work. I love that game, by the way.
Thank you. What we did in Alien Deathstorm is, as an engineer, you've got a tool we call Squire, which is kind of helping you diagnose the locations you find yourself in to sort of find out what's wrong with the hardware, and you can try and fix it. So there's a little bit of like puzzle solving to completing objectives. The reason that we do that is that it splits the player's attention. So that's a great way to build up anticipation when there's a fight going to kick off, because you're thinking hard about how do I get this place up and running.
Yeah.
And then you hear the howl of some approaching aliens and you go, oh God, I need to think about that now.
I love
that split is just so much fun.
Yeah. You guys have played with gore and violence in very creative and very clever and just very brutal, kind of over-the-top ways. I always appreciate that. What can I look forward to here in terms of that element? Like, obviously, we know there's going to be horror. There's the survival element. You're blowing stuff up, and it's, blood and guts and pus are coming out here. Tell me about the gore in this game.
Okay. I mean, in some situations, some enemies will burst, and your visor will get covered in gore, and you have to wipe it away.
Yes.
And similarly, when you're out in the storm, the air is full of horrible stuff, so it's gradually accumulating on your helmet, and you have to wipe that away as well.
Wow.
So it's all part of this desire to make it feel immersive and really drive the player into feeling like they are there and they are surviving.
That feels like a evolution of like the first time you felt frost on your visor in Metroid Prime or something like that.
Sort of thing, yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. So the rainfall sounds different depending on which direction you turn in your helmet and all those sorts of things. Really immersive.
Oh man, you guys are having fun.
Yeah, definitely.
That is awesome. All right, so we talked about the sort of the dynamic element of playing through these levels. Enemy placement is different. Things are going to surprise you in different ways. That was one of my questions in terms of replay value, but there's also difficulty, right?
Yes.
There's the idea of going like, you know, you want to go in there and you're like, I'm not very good at this game. I don't like horror. I don't like survival. Not me, of course. I love that stuff. But other players might be like that. And then there's people who might be like, give me the hardest situation possible here. So what's the plan with the difficulty scaling?
So this is a real advantage to doing dynamic procedural population.
Right.
Is that you can scale up easily for the number of players, how well they're surviving, and you know the experience should tailor itself around them. We also believe in what we call play styles on Atomfall, where it's not just difficulty, but it's also like the difficulty of different elements of the game. So let's say you want a run and gun shooter, you want loads of aliens, you don't want to think about your next objective, you just want to pile through, you don't want to care about ammo scarcity, you just want, you know, visceral combat. We give the player that option to tailor the game as they see fit. Essentially, we start the game with a kind of like recommended serving, right? Like a suggestion of what we think is the most interesting balance, but we completely believe in it being like the player's experience and they can do whatever they please.
I really, really love that. The idea of playing through this game like multiple times on increasing difficulty levels, and I've got different monsters jumping out at different parts, scaring the crap out of me. You're doing it right. You're doing it right. Good work. Any last words on Alien Deathstorm? When can people play it?
It's spring 2027, and I really can't wait for people to get their hands on it.
All right. Last thing, tell me about this. What is happening here with this guy? This is a hammer crowbar, right?
Yeah. So this is the player's melee weapon in the game. This is what they use to fight off aliens, but also it's good for a bit of percussive maintenance to survive in there. If you're trying to fix some sci-fi hardware, you smash it with a hammer.
Oh, I love it. I love it so much. Dude, thank you so much. I cannot wait to play Alien Deathstorm. It looks absolutely awesome. We've got lots more Gamescom Studio coming up right here on IGN, so don't go anywhere.